Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to another edition of the PharmaSource podcast and a special edition in the lead up to CDMO Live 2024. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Cory Lewis. Cory is the CEO, President and founder of INCOG Biopharma Services. Cory, a very warm welcome.
Yeah, Chris, thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity here today.
Great. Cory, perhaps you could just give us an intro to you and what you've been doing over recent years.
Yeah, so again, at this stage, I'm close to 30 years in the life science space. I actually started my career at Baxter up in Chicago. Of all things, was actually in the finance group. Spent about 5 years in finance, wanted to get closer to the customer, closer to the product, had an opportunity in around 2000 time period to jump into marketing. It was actually 2001, spent about a year and a half in marketing. And then ultimately in 2002, I had the opportunity to join a division of Baxter, which was Baxter Pharmaceutical Solutions down in Bloomington, Indiana. And that was my entry point into the contract manufacturing space. And delighted to say here I am 22 years later and still in the contract manufacturing space, just a couple iterations different and a couple years longer. Outside of work, avid cyclist, love outdoors. I have 4 kids at this age, or at this time, we're getting a little bit older, but absolutely enjoy spending time with family and friends. So that's me in a nutshell, and certainly happy to talk about INCOG as we move forward here.
That's great. Thank you. Maybe give us a bit more information, if you can, about INCOG and what makes you unique for customers.
So INCOG, broadly speaking, a new contract manufacturing organization. We founded the business in essentially June of 2020. So we're not even 4 years old as an organization. However, with the wisdom and experience of the team, we bring a lot more than just 4 years of experience. INCOG was set up with a focus on sterile injectables. So we've made an investment to support vial filling, syringe filling, and cartridge filling, continuing to make some investments on other activities that surround the envelope of filling, and that can include QC labs, stability services, and ultimately moving forward into auto-injector, device assembly, and final packaging capabilities. Certainly, we had to identify where we wanted to start the business, and we started with filling, but we've got a 10-year site master plan to really continue to expand our filling capacity, but also to bolt on some other business units, if you will, supporting downstream commercial packaging, device assembly, as I mentioned. Our executive team, all individuals that I've known for the better part of at least 15 years, in some cases 30 years. So I think we're pretty unique in the sense that we got the band back together to start this company and really do it right. We've said from day one, our goal was to be a tier 1 CMO. And what I mean by that is, in the world of soccer, baseball, there's the major leagues, there's the MLS. We wanted to make sure that we could compete at whatever that top league is in contract manufacturing. And in order to do that, you need an executive team who understands the landscape. You need an investment thesis that allows you to make that investment. As you might envision, building a facility and putting in the type of equipment that we have is quite expensive. So we said out of the gates, we wanted to be at that tier 1 level. And over time, we're going to continue to add scale, which really allows us to compete at a whole nother level, within that tier 1 space. You asked the question, what's different about INCOG? I mean, I think certainly, right to operate with our equipment, our quality systems are, top notch, as evident by, here we are really less than a year and a half post-production starting, and we already have our first FDA-approval. Shout out to the INCOG team specifically. Had an 8-day inspection, resulted in 0 Form 483s being issued, 0 observations. I mean, that's a compliment and a testament to what it is we're building. So as I said, operations and quality, that's a right to operate. And then really, Chris, it's customer service. We just approach customer service differently. We approach partnership differently. We're not looking to have 100 customers. We want to have 20 or 30 customers and be able to support them quite different than they're being supported in the current landscape of other contract manufacturers.
Thank you. I mean, there's so much progress there in a relatively short amount of time, in 4 years. How's 2024 been so far? I mean, there's so much disruption and change in the contract manufacturing landscape. There's been some pretty big acquisitions, a fair bit of regulatory change, etc. How's the year been so far? What do you see as the main challenges and opportunities in this year so far?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly for us, there's just a lot of opportunity. Clearly, we're a newer organization. We're building our customer base. But 2024 for us, 4 months into it or 5 months into it, has been great, right? I mean, to think that we started the year with bringing on a couple new customers, that was exciting. February to reach a milestone in our business of getting our first FDA inspection, right? We did our PPQ batches in March and April of 2023, resulted in filing. Our customer then filed, I think it was early January, FDA inspection in February, right? To get the outcome, they just got approval within the last 4 weeks. So that was a huge milestone. And that was, again, I look at that as maybe a turning point in and of itself. We had a lot of customers on the sidelines waiting to see, is INCOG a good, operational company? Are they a good quality company? Do you have your first FDA approval? Well, now that we have the FDA approval, the check mark, candidly, I don't want to say the floodgates have opened up, but significant interest has been piqued with customers that were on the sideline. And in fact, other customers that we weren't even talking to 30 days ago, now with this FDA inspection, are coming here asking us to support their programs. You throw on two other things that are happening in the marketplace, clearly, for sterile injectable and probably other CMOs as well. When Novo Holdings announced that they're going to buy Catalent, that creates a lot of opportunity, right? So certainly we're seeing some benefits from that. You throw on the third element, Biosecure Act, that's going through, legislation in DC. And I think we've already had two customers that have converted to us that were manufacturing in China and said they needed to bring it, somewhere else. And, we were the recipients of that. And then the fourth thing, Chris, if you just think broadly speaking, what's happening in the market, this whole landscape called GLP-1, it's consuming a lot of capacity. So, as a result, with a new facility that's state of the art, new capacity coming online, we're getting a lot of interest. Candidly, now our challenge is going to be, can we accelerate our headcount? Can we grow at the speed of which might be necessary to satisfy the customer demand? And it's also a challenge because we have to sometimes say, no, it's not the right project. It's not the right fit. And that's going to be something that we're very cognizant of, because customer service, you don't deliver good customer service if you're diluted. Diluting to 50 and 100 customers, you can deliver really good customer if you get the right ones. And that's going to be a challenge for us, is to make sure that we stay at our core, focused on customer service to be able to support near term and ultimately long term.
Yeah. Okay. With that backdrop, with those big market shifts, with the very successful FDA inspection, what are the main products and services that you as a business are investing in as a result?
Yeah, so as I referenced, we built our first facility, came online, media fills in 22, PPQ in 23. That first line is focused, it's a multi-use line. So any customer that needs syringe, vial, or cartridge filling, traditional molecules, we're not high potency, we're not live viruses, but traditional molecules, we have capacity, right? So that's highlight number one, where our investment is. We have already, right, made an investment for our second line. We started with one to get us going. The second filling line, which is a high-speed syringe line, is going to bring on probably another 90 to 110 million units of annual capacity, syringes specifically. It can also do cartridges. So we're investing in more syringe and cartridge capacity to complement what's already installed. When I talk about it from a customer perspective, we are doing clinical work, we're doing commercial work, right? We filled a phase 1 monoclonal antibody in a 30R. We filled a commercial program in a 1 ml long, right? So we've got a broad array of capabilities, both small molecule and large molecule. However, what I will say is right now, as I look at our pipeline, roughly 80% of the conversations that we find ourselves in are focused on biologics and peptides, high value molecules. Because of the investment we've made, we've got the capabilities and some features on the line that help minimize line loss, as an example. Well, that means a lot when you're dealing with a monoclonal antibody and you're doing a 50-liter batch that might cost $3 to $5 million of bulk drug substance, or have $3 to $5 million of value in that bulk drug substance. So line loss is really important. If you're doing a small molecule that's $20,000 or $30,000, our line may not be the right fit based on the investment profile. So that's where we're making investments, is more filling capacity. I will also say we've added in in the last 6 months, some device assembly capabilities, and we continue to anticipate making some more investments in device assembly. And that's everything from syringe accessorizing, finger flange plunger rod insertion, all the way to auto-injector assembly. Again, if you think about the monoclonal antibody that I just referenced, broadly speaking, they start in a vial, but as quickly as they can move to self-injection, a pre-filled syringe, all the way to an auto-injector. I think about 40% of our pipeline programs may need some level of downstream device assembly, and we're making investments to be able to support that vertical integration for our customers, both at a clinical scale, but more importantly, at a commercial scale.
Great to understand more about the main areas of investment from a product and service perspective, and also the capacity. Let's shift the focus a little bit towards customers. When we look to INCOG as a business, what are the ideal customers that you look to work with? Is that driven by a particular phase of development or manufacturing, a location or specialism? What does that look like?
Yeah, I'm going to step back, and before we even get into the molecule itself, ideal customer is one that appreciates, understands, and acknowledges the benefit of contract manufacturing, right? At this stage, we've invested close to $200 million. Clearly, we're making big investments to be able to bring capacity on that is right size, right capability for our customers. We're not a low-cost provider, and that isn't for everybody, right? So we've got to make sure that we're targeting the right type of customers and the right type of buyers. From there, then we start looking into the capabilities, and as indicated, we intend for the next 20 years to do clinical programs. So we have a line that can do a 2,000 unit clinical fill at phase 1. That same line can do a 50,000, 60,000, 100,000 unit batch size for commercial. Again, it's really well positioned for biologics. From my experience, most biologics are doing 1 to 5,000 unit phase 1, phase 2 fills. As they move into commercial, they generally tap out at 20 to 50,000 unit batch sizes, right? It's not because they don't want to get bigger, but it's because they have $3 to $5 million of BDS. From a risk perspective, they just don't want that big of exposure on a single, filling project. So that's where we're targeting biologics. We're well positioned for biologic. The team has tremendous amount of experience with biologics. So we're leveraging that experience. We're leveraging the filling equipment. We're leveraging our expertise, and the fact that we're making investments in downstream device assembly. That helps them say, wait a minute, we want to be able to vertically integrate. We want to minimize the time that we're shipping high value syringes filled with drug somewhere else to get packaged, only to come back here and get final stability, as an example. So those customers who are looking for vertical integration, those customers who are looking to streamline their processes, we're getting ourselves in a position to be able to support those customers quite nicely.
Okay, great. The industry is clearly very focused on sustainability, scope 3 emissions, etc. How are you as a business supporting this drive to sustainability? What are your plans going forward in terms of customers' carbon footprint?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And as a small company, I will tell you we're laser focused on bringing on our capabilities. However, as a result of where we're making our investment, I think naturally we're helping our customers do exactly what you said, minimize the carbon footprint. Right? I'll use this first commercial program. We filled the syringes. Those syringes had to get shipped elsewhere for device assembly, only to come back to our facility to go put in our stability chambers for final stability testing and final release. Right? Going forward, we want to be able to take that step of shipping product off and bringing it back and just do the device assembly here. So we're making investments to be able to take that shipping process, probably about anywhere, from the time it goes there and back, it's probably you're losing 12 weeks or maybe even 16 weeks of your expiry on top of it. So not only are we helping with carbon footprint, we're helping leave more expiry available for the inpatient. So we're doing that naturally. We're making these investments, in parallel, and we're intending for commercial programs to take it all the way through top load cartoning, serialization, and being able to ship it back to the pharma company for final distribution. That's when we just look at the scope of INCOG, and that's been our focus for the last 3 and 4 years. However, I will say through this journey, and when we selected the city of Fishers, which is a suburb of Indianapolis, we spent a fair amount of time with local government, right? Mayor Fadness here in the city of Fishers, his economic development team, Megan Baumgartner, and said, you know what? Indiana is a manufacturing state. Indiana is a life science company. You know, a lot of people don't realize it, but I believe we're #2 exporter of life science products of all the states. Why is Indiana not doing more manufacturing? Why is Indiana not doing more manufacturing in the life science space? And within about 3 to 6 months, he went out and created a life science park and said, Cory, we want to attract other companies. And we gave him a list of 10 companies. Fast forward today, Stevanato Group, which is a company out of Italy, they've located and built a brand new facility less than a kilometer away from us. They manufacture everything from vial, syringes, cartridges. If a customer chooses them, we've just helped our customer reduce the carbon footprint, shipping, syringes ready to fill into our operation within a kilometer, right? That same site is also doing device assembly, like the dry device assembly. So as we get into auto-injector assembly, it could be that we source syringes from Stevanato Group a kilometer away. We fill the syringes. We source components, device components, a kilometer away, and then we do the device assembly. Now, it has to be the right project, right? The right component mix. But certainly for those customers who are worried about sustainability, those customers that are interested in reducing their carbon footprint, we have a very unique opportunity, and we are trying to attract other CMOs to the area. And we've got a couple other CMOs that are bolt-ons to various different aspects of what we do. And if we can keep this within a 1 to 2 kilometer distance, guess what? Pharma companies will benefit. What I see is the large pharma is paying more attention to this, but by default, the small pharma and the mid companies as well, mid-sized companies, are going to reap those benefits just naturally from supply chain connectivity.
Talking about market trends, you touched on a couple earlier. What's one market trend that listeners should have front of mind?
First and foremost is making sure that you have to change the lens of duration, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of companies, both big and small, think about the next 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months. And they make decisions based on available capacity within those time windows. The reality is, and especially, and I'll say this probably even more so with syringes and just the continued migration of monoclonal antibodies from vials into syringes, as we see what's happening in the GLP-1 space, a market that's growing from essentially a new market in 2017 to projected to be, I think, $100 billion market in 2030, there are going to be a lot of syringes that are consumed. So I think that the market trend is you need to not just be thinking about where you're going to get your product filled in the next 6 to 12 months, but how can you also be securing capacity 1 year, 2 years, 3 years out? Because companies like ourselves, I mean, as I said, we have our first line in, we're bringing a second line in, we're looking at a third line because we're now seeing customers start securing longer. And if you're going to wait till 28 to make a decision for 2029, you're probably going to be too late. You need to be making decisions today, for some of those anticipated demands that you're going to have in 28, 29, and 2030, just based on the overall market. Certainly, again, that applies to syringes. I would say it also is starting to apply even more so to cartridges. From a vial perspective, you can probably make some shorter term decisions and still be okay. Syringes and cartridges, you need to be thinking longer term than you've probably been doing for the last 3 to 5 years for sure. But that's not just with filling. That's with components. That's with the glass. That's with the rubber. It's the entire supply chain. You just have to be thinking differently today than you did, as I said, 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Cory, final question. You talked earlier about the importance of the partnership, etc., when you're thinking about ideal customers. Thinking again about the work with biotechs and pharma companies, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to pharma, to biotechs when partnering with a CDMO? What are some of the problems you see? Where are the opportunities? But what's the one key bit of advice you would give to those businesses in those partnerships?
It's interesting. I think oftentimes people get a CDMO on the list because of their capabilities, right? Do you have syringe filling? Do you have vial filling? Do you have packaging? Again, that's the right to operate in my mind. The challenge that I would give to a biopharma company, or even said differently, if I were in their shoes, probably the most important thing that I would be looking at is this a company for which I believe in short-term and long-term, right? The reality is if you do your phase 3 with a company, you need to know that you're going to be working with them collaboratively for the next 3, 5, and 10 years because it's so expensive to do a site transfer. Certainly you want to do some of that from a risk mitigation perspective, but I would say certainly spend a lot of time in the quality audit and the technical aspects of it, but probably equally important and maybe even more importantly, do you really see yourself being married, right? Let's use that term, right? Dating's one thing if you're just doing clinical, but do you see yourself being married to the CDMO partner for the next 5 to 10 years as your product goes from launch to 1 million units to 10 million units or whatever the volume is? Because if you get that relationship wrong, if you get that partnership wrong, yeah, it's just not pretty, right? A lot of frustrations, a lot of extra dollars spent, a lot of time wasted. So I oftentimes encourage people like, hey, if we're not the right fit, that's okay, right? If you don't like the way that we work or if you don't like the approach we take, I'd rather know that earlier in the process. And that would be the advice I would challenge is don't just look at capabilities, look at the relationship, look at the partnership, look at how they approach customer service, look at how they embrace person in the plant. How are you going to resolve an issue? Deviations occur. How do you work collaboratively to resolve a deviation? What is that softer side of the business? I think oftentimes it gets missed. It gets overlooked. Certainly from a procurement, it's all about dollars and cents. The reality is it's way more than dollars and cents. That relationship and partnership approach is critical.
Yeah, that's great. And again, I think that really talks beyond the capabilities, but really talks about the importance of the fit between those companies. And as you say, the importance of a relationship and a sort of 5 to 10 year view. That's all we've got time for today. So, Cory, a very, very big thank you for your time today. And obviously, we look forward very much to INCOG's involvement in CDMO Live on the 13th of June. So thank you very much for your support there as well. Thanks ever so much for your time today.
You're very welcome.
Join us at CDMO Live on June the 13th. All you need to do to register is head to pharmasource.global/CDMO Live. We look forward to seeing you there.